Discover the inspiring journey of a farmer who surprised everyone with an incredible bank account. Doug stood at the edge of his field, the wind ruffling his worn overalls, watching the golden corn sway like tiny waves. 100 years of family legacy pulsed beneath his feet, yet the weight of an uncertain harvest pinched at his chest. The bills stacked in the kitchen corner sang a desperate tune that he couldn't ignore. Each evening, he tucked his 2 kids into bed, stifling his own unease while spinning tales of hope. But deep down, he felt trapped, a man torn between tradition and the yearning for change. Today, repairing the fence felt different. As he tightened the barbed wire, Mr. Thompson appeared, a memory from his high school days. They exchanged pleasantries, and before long, the conversation played into woodworking, a craft Doug had loved but let fade. The thought struck like a bolt: could he, a humble farmer, reshape wood into something beautiful? As much as it thrilled him, fear slithered in. Was he more than just Doug the farmer? Could he merge artistry with his labor? Weeks slipped by, and Doug unveiled his wooden sculptures at the local market. He poured his soul into each piece, hoping to carve out a new identity. But the townsfolk were quick to dismiss him, eyes glazed over as they resisted change. Just a farmer, they whispered to themselves, oblivious to the transformation simmering within. The rejection stung, a reminder that dreams often collide with narrow perspectives. He hesitated, questioning his worth. Was he brave enough to break the mold? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Doug stood amidst the clutter of his unsold sculptures, a letter arrived that turned his world upside down. The bold lettering announced an inheritance from a grandfather he never knew existed. Wealth, a vision of peace and hope for his children, spread across his mind like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. But with this fortune came a question sharper than any nail. Should he invest in the farm that had cradled generations, or nurture his artistic dreams he had been too timid to explore? An internal storm raged within him. What did prosperity truly mean? Collective opinions pressed on him, suffocating his clarity. The thrill of success clashed with deep-rooted values. Could his family legacy be expanded beyond tilling the soil and dealing with weather whims? What if this newfound wealth could buy a larger piece of land? Uncertainty gripped him like a vice. At that moment, Doug's identity splintered. The desire for security wrestled with the need for authenticity. With the town abuzz about his unexpected windfall, their whispers became a cacophony of judgments that pressed tighter against his chest. He felt every pair of eyes on him, dissecting his choices before he even made them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows over the fields, Doug stood at a pivotal crossroad, balancing the weight of his family's legacy against the pull of his buried passions. The doubts billowed inside him, hungry for answers, but clarity eluded him in the twilight. The battle within raged on. What would he choose? Only the encroaching darkness knew. Under the weight of uncertainty, Doug paced his kitchen, the letter crumpling in his grip like a balloon losing its air. The inheritance could offer a fresh start, a glimmer of hope for his artistic aspirations, but stepping away from the farm felt like turning his back on generations of hard work. Each click of his boots against the wooden floor echoed as loudly as his heart, unsettling every thought that dared challenge the traditions he had known. He reached for the sculpted figure of a horse he'd crafted, still rough around the edges but replete with intentions for beauty. How badly he wanted to breathe life into more creations like it. Each piece ignited something in him that had long been doused by the mundane demands of farming. They were extensions of his aspirations, tangible proof of a world beyond tilling soil. Yet, he felt it was hollow, a dream clouded by judgment, each disapproving glance from the townsfolk ringing louder than the hammer against wood. As he mulled over his choices, Doug retreated to the barn, looking for solace among the animals. The gentle coos of chickens and the whinnies of horses were his comfort, but even their quietude couldn't drown out the clamor of his mind. Should he transform his farm into a gallery, combining rustic charm with artistic ambition? His heart quickened, the thought seemed to blossom, yet it was quickly choked by a persistent dread. A farm conceived through generations suddenly transformed. What would his family think? Would they resent him, or worse, see him as a failure? That evening, he immersed himself in his sculptures, each stroke of the chisel becoming cathartic. A piece of wood once destined for the fire gained a semblance of purpose beneath his careful hands. He poured stories of his lineage into the grain, forging connections not just to the land but to his personal passions. Equally exhilarating and terrifying, this venture was pushing him away from expected norms. Days turned into restless nights, and Doug's mind oscillated between dreams of an art-driven future and the demands of his farm. With every sunrise, he felt the weight of his decision looming. The plants grew taller, yet so did the tension ripe within him. Maybe he could host a community exhibition blending agriculture and artistry. Could forging this connection help the town see beyond the label of a farmer? Determination nudged his heart, propelling him towards an idea. He would craft pieces inspired by the very soil he worked and the tools he used. The family legacy could intertwine with originality, merging two worlds into an expression of himself that he hadn't dared to imagine. Doug saw a future one where appreciation for agriculture was celebrated alongside art. Yet even as excitement bubbled within him, doubts crept back like weeds through cracks in concrete. Could a man who had always identified as a farmer truly break free from the chains of people's perceptions? Would they embrace him as an artist, or would he remain just a farmer in their eyes? With a profound sense of purpose, Doug stepped outside to take in the fading light, his breath mingling with the crisp evening air. The sky transformed into a marvelous canvas of colors, a reminder that beauty often emerges from chaos. But confrontation loomed as he grappled not only with his past but also the expectations of a reluctant community. What if he failed? What if the inheritance dissipated into worry for validation rather than tribute to evolution? As much as he longed for affirmation, the real battle was against self-doubt. Now, he faced the next challenge, mustering the courage to confront not just the world around him, but the man he was becoming. As he looked out over his field, a question loomed like the twilight itself: who would he decide to be? The moment of truth beckoned, and tomorrow promised clarity one way or another. It was finally time to face the whispers of his past and the echoes of his future. But first, he would have to face the person looking back at him in the mirror. The next morning, as dawn's first light broke over the horizon, Doug felt an urgency pulsing through him, quickening his pulse and pushing the shadows of doubt aside. He rose with intent, his mind stewing with the decisions he had to make. Today, he wouldn't dwell in indecision. It was time for action. He looked at the familiar contours of his farm, steeped in history, yet yearning for the vibrancy he had envisioned. When he stepped into the barn, a sense of clarity invaded him. He would start manifesting his dreams. Tools spread out around him like canvases waiting for paint. This wasn't just a space for animals but a sanctuary for creation. While rearranging his workspace, he stumbled upon a box of his late father's old tools, frail with age yet potent with memories. Sifting through the rusted metal, he realized these belonged to a man who loved this land but had unfulfilled aspirations of his own, a dreamer cloaked in duty. Gripped by an impulse, Doug decided he would incorporate these tools into his sculptures, a physical and emotional connection spanning generations. Deciding to showcase his pieces in a gallery-like setting on his farm wasn't just about art, it was about revering the history of his family. It was a rebellion against the doubt that had held him captive for too long. As he gathered his ideas, he felt his vision sharpening. He would change the perception of what a farmer means in his town. With a newfound determination, he set to work. His hands shaped the wood with fervor, each carve resonating with a vibrant energy he hadn't felt in years. As the figures began to take form, chairs intertwined with vines, horses forged from plowshares, he lost himself in the rhythm of creation. There was undeniable beauty in the juxtaposition of the rustic and the artistic. The creations weren't merely sculptures but symbols of rebirth. Despite this exhilaration, shadows danced at the edges of his mind. The fear of failure loomed like a specter, whispering insecurities that threatened to tear his growing confidence apart. Would his community, conditioned to see him as merely the farmer, accept these radical transformations? Would they acknowledge the depth behind his sculptures or ridicule them as frivolous affections veiling the hard labor of agriculture? During a break, Doug ventured into town to gather supplies, the familiar route twisting his thoughts into a frenzy. Each passing face felt scrutinizing, as if they were reading his internal struggle written across his forehead. He found himself cringing at every sideways glance and dampening his expectations in anticipation of judgment. Returning home, he reflected on an idea that bubbled within him: why not invite a couple of local artists to collaborate? Their experience could bolster his confidence and introduce a broader range of perspectives. There was power in pooling creativity. He had created alone for too long. Collaborating could also show his peers that artistry intertwined with farming wasn't solely his endeavor, it could be a shared exploration of identity. With resolve, he drafted a message to a small number of artists he had met at previous local shows. Blinking at the blinking cursor, his thoughts raced. Would they be willing to join him? The community wouldn't just see him, they'd see a collective, an alliance of creativity bridging traditional pursuits with innovative expressions. As he pressed send, Doug felt a flicker of hope. He had taken a step towards building something greater than himself, towards evolving his identity. But as the light from his window dimmed, so did his confidence at the thought of their reaction. Could he truly reshape the narrative of who he was? The uncertainty stung as deeply as a cold winter wind. The moment teetered on the edge of resolve and fear, each nerve heightened with anticipation. Changes were coming, but could he welcome them without losing who he had been? Tomorrow unveiled more than just new pieces for his gallery. It promised the first responses from the artist's potential allies or dismissive critics. Doug stood at the precipice, ready to embrace either outcome. Would this partnership usher in a transformation or solidify the fears that threatened to bind him? Only time would tell. The sun rose hesitantly the next day, a shy glow peeking through the clouded sky as Doug awoke, his mind still swirling with thoughts of yesterday's leap into collaboration. He dressed purposefully, tying his boots with a tightness that underscored his determination. Today was not just another day, it was a juncture, the cusp of transformation he had been yearning for. The barn was alive with the fresh scent of sawdust as he arranged his workspace, each tool now a tangible testament to both heritage and aspiration. Still, beneath the surface of excitement brewed anxiety. Doubt ventured like a persistent shadow, creeping closer as his heart raced at the thought of the artist's responses. Would they find his ideas intriguing, or view them as a whimsy unworthy of their talent? Doug shifted his focus back to the sculptures assembled around him, inspiration blooming with every glance. His father's tools had woven into the fabric of his creations, each sculpture whispering tales of resilience and hope. He pondered the individual narratives buried within them. The intertwined chairs depicted old gatherings, while the plowshare horses ushered in memories of vigor and toil. Doug's journey was sculpted through shared history, reflecting not only his past but also the dreams yet to be embraced. He anxiously checked his phone, heart racing each time a message notification chimed. The wait felt interminable, punctuated by the sounds of birds chirping outside, as if nature itself mocked his impatience. Finally, when a response arrived, it was a sudden surge of adrenaline, releasing years' worth of suffocated courage. Each artist replied with varying levels of interest, some eager, others curious, and a couple indifferent. The enthusiasm sparked by the eager responses invigorated him, shifting him away from the precipice of self-doubt. They wanted to meet, to discuss ideas, to explore the intersection of art and agriculture further. Each artist represented a unique pathway, an opportunity to merge visions and challenge the narrative he repeatedly grappled with. Excitement bubbled inside Doug, sparking new ideas that twisted within him like roots seeking sunlight. Yet it wasn't all jubilance. an undercurrent of fear persisted. What if, during collaboration, he revealed how unworthy he felt compared to their skills? Would they sense beneath his surface-level confidence the insecurities that threatened to drown his ambition? Each affirmation he received wove ribbons of hope alongside fraying strands of anxiety, leading him to question his artistic legitimacy. With that nagging specter of doubt, Doug decided he had to solidify his vision before meeting with them. An outline emerged in his mind, an aesthetic melding of traditional farming elements enriched by the artist's creative styles. Hours passed as he sketched and organized, working through plates of ideas like a composer piecing together an intricate symphony. As the sun dipped low, casting shadows that lay heavy over the barn, Doug paused, his eyes darting to the old tools stacked on a shelf. Each rusted edge, each worn surface represented not only his father's legacy but also his own commitment to pursuing art. The dedication embedded in those tools reminded him of sacrifice and devotion. He had a right to claim his place as both farmer and artist. Determined, Doug resolved to bridge the chasm between tradition and innovation. He gathered his drafts, ready to present his exhilarating vision, albeit burdened with flashes of uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, he reminded himself that the artists he would meet were not rivals but allies for growth, conduits for expanding not just his identity but their own. As night enveloped the farm in quiet, he felt the world around him expand. Tomorrow would afford him a confrontation with not only the artists but himself. The boundaries of fear and identity were shifting. They were fragile and formidable. What did it mean to redefine himself in a world that had long painted him in one dimension? The impending meeting pulsated in his veins, brimming with the potential for both collaboration and conflict. Would he emerge victorious in carving out his newfound identity or discover the depths of his limitations? Only the morrow would unveil those answers. Doug climbed from his bed early that morning, the anticipation electrifying every step he took. Each sound in the barn, the creak of the wooden beams, the rustling of hay amplified his internal dialogue and set the tone for the day ahead. He felt a new responsibility pressing down on him. Tremendous change lay within reach, and he was the architect of his own potential. He set to work with renewed vigor, rearranging tools and gathering project outlines he had drafted the night before. As he meticulously organized his thoughts, Doug pondered the variety of personalities he was about to encounter. Each artist brought a world of experience, creativity, and, perhaps, as he feared, scrutiny. The thought kindled an internal storm. Could he communicate his vision effectively? Would they perceive value in his perspective as a farmer artist, or would they simply see him as an outsider intruding on their realm? The clock seemed to tick faster and slower simultaneously, a mercurial tempo that heightened his restlessness. As he methodically prepared his workspace, visions of each artist's coming motivations flitted through his mind. The designs, the colors and textures, they swirled like autumn leaves caught in a gust of wind, and he desperately tried to grasp the subsets of creativity he had woven into his ideas. They represented his past and aspirations, concepts that connected him with the land and his father. With a final glance around the barn, he replayed his mental script one last time. He had an idea, an installation that fused practical elements of agriculture with artistic expression, emphasizing the cyclical nature of life on the farm. It was a marriage of aesthetics and utility, a narrative embracing resilience, the pace of nature, and cycles of growth. He felt a swell of hope with this renewed vision. The meeting was scheduled for later in the afternoon, and Doug could already feel the tremors of apprehension coursing through him. What if his vision fell flat? What if they rejected him before even seeing his work? Suddenly, he felt a potent mix of fear and determination to prove himself. As he drew closer to the moment of truth, his hands grew clammy, and he instinctively wiped them on his jeans. He crafted more plans, not just artwork, but backup ideas that conveyed how to execute them, what materials to employ, where they could scale their vision. In his mind, each plan was an essential bridge over an uncertain chasm, each detailing the essence of what they could create together. When the time arrived, Doug's heart raced as he approached the designated gathering space, a rustic area framed by the barn's open doors. Natural light streamed through, illuminating the floor in splashes and creating an inviting atmosphere. As the artists began to arrive, their varied reactions ranged from enthusiastic greetings to studious observations, a collective energy that buzzed around him. Amidst the exchange of introductions, Doug immersed himself in their energy, feeling the cracks of his confidence begin to mend, if only slightly. He realized their presence was a gift, each individual an opportunity to break down barriers he had constructed over the years. Their laughter and discussion stirred something deep within him, an unexpected realization: this was a collaboration, not an arena for judgment. Doug took a deep breath, readying himself for the presentation. As he gestured toward the sketches he had scattered on the table, he noticed all eyes on him. Curiosity and encouragement radiated from the artists, not critique. Their expressions sparked a flicker of bravery in him, rekindling the belief that he belonged right there, sharing plateaus of creativity. But just as he breathed in the intrigue surrounding him, a sinking feeling tugged at his heart. Was he truly ready to share his identity with them? The internal conflict swayed in a balance, teetering between aspiration and fear, as he recalled the depths of his journey, the moments that had carved him as both farmer and emerging artist. With every detail he shared, the desire to shatter the limitations gnawed at him, propelling him towards a momentous leap. Perhaps this was not just the unveiling of his art but the revelation of who he fundamentally was, a multifaceted identity bridging two seemingly disparate worlds. As the initial discussions came to a close and the first impressions simmered on the table, a sudden loud knock echoed off the barn walls. Doug's heart lurched. Who could it be? And what would their arrival mean for the fragile equilibrium he had just begun to cultivate? Doug's pulse quickened as he turned towards the barn door, his mind racing with speculation. The voices of the artists hushed, an electric charge passing through the air. Curiosity and apprehension intertwined in his gut. Would this unexpected guest disrupt the delicate balance he had just begun to forge? Or worse, would they challenge his vision, exposing his insecurities for all to see? As the door creaked open, a familiar silhouette stepped into the light. It was his father, Harold, a man whose presence had always loomed large in Doug's life, fraught with unspoken expectations and inherited responsibilities. He wore his usual expression, a mixture of determination and concern, eyes scanning the scene before him, settling finally on his son. The artists exchanged wary glances, sensing the shift in energy. Doug felt a tightening in his chest. His world, which had begun to feel broader with the presence of creative camaraderie, suddenly shrank. His father, a stalwart of traditional agrarian values, stood in stark contrast to the vibrant, free-spirited collective now gathered in the barn. He could feel the weight of judgment, a pressure that clawed at his resolve. "Doug," Harold called, his voice carrying a tone that was equal parts authoritative and inquisitive. "I didn't expect to find you here with all these people." The hesitance in his father's words struck a chord, reverberating through Doug's mind. His relationship with Harold was as tangled as the roots of the ancient oaks outside. Growing up, Doug had felt the suffocating presence of his father's worldview, a perspective that didn't easily accommodate creativity or the merging of art with their agricultural heritage. With the artists surrounding him, Doug had finally begun to carve out a space where he could be true to himself. That space now felt perilously fragile. "Dad, I'm working on something important," Doug managed, striving to keep his voice steady, even as uncertainty crept in. He gestured to the open sketches, brief glimpses of color and contour that represented his heartfelt endeavors. The artists looked on, their expressions shifting from curiosity to concern. They sensed the tension. "I can see that," Harold replied, stepping closer, his eyes narrowing slightly as he studied the sketches. "But these aren't just art pieces, they're impractical. We need to focus on what keeps this farm running. Have you lost sight of that?" With each word, Doug felt an internal conflict brewing. The familiar pull of duty clashed with the exhilaration of exploring one's path. Did he truly have to choose between honoring his heritage and pursuing his passion? Was his vision so futile that it failed to resonate even with his own father? Suddenly, Doug realized the knock at the door wasn't just a disruptive force, it was an opportunity for confrontation, a moment to either forge ahead or retreat into himself. What if he could articulate the essence of his project and, in doing so, reshape the narrative of his self-worth? He had spent too long measuring his value against the expectations placed upon him. "Dad, this represents more than art," Doug finally said, summoning a newfound steadiness. "It's about connecting our land with our dreams. It's a chance to showcase what we do here, to tell a story that both honors our roots and embraces the future." The artists looked on with raised eyebrows, some beginning to nod in silent support while others watched with anticipation. Doug's heart raced as he crossed an unseen line. What if he could provide this moment of clarity not just for himself, but for the people around him? As he spoke, energy pulsed through him, igniting passion where uncertainty had previously dwelt. Doug felt like he was stepping into a larger narrative, one that combined the power of agriculture with the limitless possibilities of art and expression. Just as he felt encouraged momentum building, Harold interrupted. "You may believe that, but it won't yield results." The harsh cutting sound of his father's dismissal hung in the air, palpable amidst the swirling expectations. Doug's resolve faltered as the weight of Harold's skepticism bore down on him. Yet in this moment of conflict lay a crucial turning point. Doug had a choice. He could either choose to retreat into the familiar shadows of self-doubt, or he could forge ahead, challenging not only his father's perceptions but also his own. As he stood there, the eyes of the artists fixed on him, he took a deep breath, a flicker of determination igniting once again within him. Perhaps this was more than an artistic endeavor, it could serve as a reclamation of identity, a reaffirmation of his multifaceted self. With uncertainty mingling with resolve, Doug made a decision. He would strive not only to share his vision but perhaps to reveal deeper truths about himself. The stakes were higher than before, as was the challenge of reconciling the dichotomy of his life. Determined to push further, Doug opened his mouth to articulate his ideas once more, but just before he could speak, the barn doors swung wide open once again. The sudden intrusion cast everything into disarray, leaving Doug caught in a whirlwind of emotions as he faced yet another unknown. What awaited him now, and would it shatter the fragile sense of belonging he was desperately trying to build? Doug's heart pounded in his chest as the sunlight spilled into the barn, illuminating the space with a harsh reality. The door swung wider, and an unexpected figure stepped inside. It was Bob, Harold's old friend and a respected member of the agricultural community. His arrival disrupted the fragile footing Doug had just begun to secure with his art and ambitions. "Harold. You didn't say you'd be bringing the boy out to show us his drawings," Bob said, a hint of a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. The way he emphasized the word drawings felt like a dismissal, an indication that he viewed Doug's art as juvenile whimsies, an unwelcome distraction from the family legacy written in furrows of soil. The room fell silent, the artists casting quick glances at Doug as if gauging his response. The tension heightened. Doug could feel their anticipation palpably hanging in the air, urging him to rise to the occasion to defend not only his work but himself. "I'm actually working on a project that combines our agricultural heritage with artistic interpretation," Doug said, his voice steadier now despite the tremor in his hands. "It's important work." Bob chuckled dismissively, Sure. But we both know that people come to farms for the crops, not for this. You should be focusing all this energy on keeping the land thriving and not on creating pretty pictures that won't feed anyone," Harold interjected sharply, his brows knitted together in concern. Doug felt a surge of frustration. Was he really prepared to let them dictate his value? The doubt they instilled was suffocating. Yet underneath that doubt lay the ember of defiance, a persistent flicker that urged him to break free from the box they had constructed around him. "This isn't just pretty pictures, Bob," Doug insisted, stepping closer. "It's about showing that farming can evolve. We can honor the soil but also embrace creativity. Art doesn't undermine our work, it enhances it. It can inspire people to connect with the land and see it in new ways." The words felt significant as they left his mouth, each syllable embodying the potential of his aspirations. He was reclaiming his narrative, weaving his father's past with his vision for the future. Bob's laughter faded, replaced by an air of incredulity, but Doug wasn't done. This meeting wasn't merely a horrific confrontation with his father, it was an opportunity to challenge the ideologies embedded in their generations. "Look," Doug said, grounding his tone amidst the swirling emotions, "if I can merge the old ways with new ideas, maybe we can attract people to support the farm in ways we've never considered." The room remained tense, but Doug could see subtle shifts. The artists stood a little taller, their silent applause encouraging him. Harold's expression softened, an imperceptible crack forming in his previously rigid demeanor. Perhaps Doug's fervor echoed some of the youthful enthusiasm Harold once had, before responsibilities dulled his dreams. Doug inhaled deeply, weighing his next words. He could feel the stakes growing with each breath. What if we hosted an exhibition, showcasing not just art but the stories of the people who work the land? It could attract visitors, foster community discussion, and create income we desperately need. The silence that ensued was palpable, cradled by the uncertain faces of not just his father and Bob, but the artists who had supported him. This was a pivotal moment. He could either shrink back or stand firm, exposing the vulnerability of his aspirations, trusting in the resonance of those around him. "What do you think?" he asked, forcing himself to maintain eye contact with his father. It was more than a question, it was an implicit invitation for Harold to dream again, to consider a reality beyond the one he had firmly held for so long. The atmosphere felt electric, life hanging in the balance of Doug's brave proposal. The moment felt monumental. For the first time, he felt the weight of expectation shift slightly, creating a connection that had long been frayed. Before his father could respond, however, Bob interjected, narrowing his eyes in defiance. "You really think you can convince anyone to come out here for some art nonsense? People want results, Doug. Not pipe dreams." Doug's heart raced again. This wasn't only a question of convincing others, it was testing his own resolve. Would he allow Bob's skepticism to unravel the fragile strands of courage he had woven? The balance of his future seemed suspended in the vibrating tension of the barn, dimmed only by the oppressive shadow of doubt. Doug knew he had spoken truth, he had to believe in it, himself not just as a vision for the farm, but as a man capable of changing the narrative written by others. As he stood there, caught between two worlds and staring down his own insecurities, he realized he faced more than just Bob, he faced himself. The decision loomed ahead, one that would test his courage and commitment to who he had begun to become. But before he could grasp the weight of what lay ahead, the barn doors swung open once more, revealing an unfamiliar figure standing just beyond the threshold. Doug's breath caught in his throat. What now? What uncharted territory awaited him, and would it offer an escape or a deeper entanglement in the quest for his identity? The unfamiliar figure at the barn door seemed to embody both uncertainty and promise. Doug's breath quickened as he shifted his focus. The stranger wore a wide-brimmed hat that obscured much of their face, but the posture exuded a confidence Doug admired yet envied. What would this person bring to the unfolding drama? He felt a strange pull toward this new presence, a fleeting hope that they might understand him in ways his own family couldn't. Bob, still lingering at the edge of skepticism, scoffed, "What now? Another artist looking for a free meal?" Ignoring Bob's jab, Doug took a step forward, curiosity driving him. The barn fell into a hushed silence, all eyes now on the newcomer. As they moved closer and the sunlight streamed in, Doug's heart raced with anticipation. The figure finally stepped into the light, revealing themselves as a woman in her mid-30s, with an engaging smile and eyes that sparkled with sharp intelligence. "Hi there. I'm Claire," she proclaimed, her voice steady and warm. "I heard about a project here that blends agriculture and art. It sounded fascinating, so I wanted to see for myself." Doug could almost feel a ripple of excitement at Claire's words. Here was someone eager to explore his vision, validating his dreams in a way that felt profound amidst the dismissive murmurs of Bob and others. He gestured for her to join him, feeling an electrifying urge to share both his ideas and vulnerabilities. Claire's gaze scanned the barn before settling on the sketches Doug had painstakingly arranged for the gathering. "These are beautiful," she said, taking a few steps closer to admire his work. "Are you the artist behind all of this? It's not just pictures, it feels like you're telling a story." "Yes, exactly. I'm trying to convey the relationship between farming and creativity," Doug replied, emboldened by her appreciation. "I believe art can push our understanding of the land and the work we do here." "Bob," she shot over her shoulder, "I'm sure you're familiar with the power of narrative and how it can shift people's perspectives?" Bob shifted uncomfortably but remained locked in a defensive stance, his arms crossed tightly against his chest. "Stories don't pay the bills, Claire." "Sometimes they do," she countered, her voice clear and unwavering. "How do you think communities thrive? By celebrating their culture and experiences. This exhibition could encapsulate that, bring people together in new ways." Doug's heart surged with appreciation for Claire's support. Her words softened the sting of Bob's skepticism. A flicker of hope ignited in him. Perhaps this wasn't just Bob's doubt he had to dismantle, but an entire worldview that needed challenging. "Maybe," Doug began, the words forming as he contemplated the implications. "Maybe we can collaborate and build something that can elevate both the farm and the arts community. We could showcase not just my work but host discussions, workshops, anything to bring people out here. With Claire's background, perhaps we could even establish a network that promotes both art and agriculture." Claire's eyes glimmered with added enthusiasm. "I could help with outreach. My previous projects involved connecting local artists with farmers, building that bridge. It's rewarding work." Unsure whether he truly believed in this turning tide or if it was merely hopefulness creeping in, Doug's thoughts darted in every direction. The weight of Bob's glare was like a storm cloud threatening to overshadow his moment of clarity, yet another realization dawned on him. With a newfound conviction, Doug turned to his father. "Dad, don't you see? This isn't about me running away from our roots. It's about strengthening our foundation, connecting the past with an innovative future. Wouldn't you want to be part of that?" Harold's brow furrowed, his expression a mosaic of conflict. Doug could sense that the seed of possibility had taken root, but the journey ahead wouldn't be straightforward. A moment of silence enveloped them as Doug awaited his father's response, a flicker of defiance deep within himself. The uncertainty of Harold's reply hung heavily in the air, blending with the tension that encircled Doug's ambitions like vines on old walls. Would he gain the support he needed to forge ahead, or would fear dictate the narrative yet again? Before the silence could stretch into unbearable territory, Claire spoke again, her voice a calming pulse in the chaotic atmosphere. "Let us prove them wrong, Doug. Let us show them what we can do when we combine passion with purpose." In that moment, Doug felt a pivotal shift within himself. Yet, just as he readied to explore his next steps, Bob interrupted with a scoff, "Good luck bringing in anyone with that nonsense, kid. You're just setting yourself up for failure." As the word struck him, Doug suddenly realized that the looming decision wasn't only about his ambitions, it was a test of resilience against those who doubted him. Would he let their skepticism drown out the flame kindled within him? The next steps were teeming with uncertainty, and he could feel the swirling vortex of his feelings pushing against the boundaries he had finally begun to stretch. Uncharted territory lay ahead, and as the confrontation lingered, Doug knew that the defining moment had arrived. He had to confront not only the naysayers around him but also the shadows of doubt buried deep within himself. He stood ready, gripping the weight of his convictions, knowing the path unraveling before him demanded more than just belief, it required action. Would he take that step into the unknown, driven by purpose, or linger under the flickering doubts? The tension in the barn felt almost tangible, and as Doug stood at the crossroads of ambition and doubt, a simmering sense of urgency welled within him. Bob's laughter echoed in his ears, not as a source of motivation, but as a stark reminder of the barriers he faced. Doubt was insidious, like weeds that could overtake a flourishing garden if left unchecked. Doug found himself pondering the stakes at play. This wasn't just about proving Bob wrong. It was about confronting the image he had of himself, which clashed against the golden opportunities Claire had illuminated. The artistic side of farming that echoed his heart and spirit was, until now, buried beneath years of conventional expectations and familial obligations. Doug? Claire's voice cut through the fog in his mind. Her steady gaze anchored him, beckoning him to respond. "I'm here," he replied, inhaling deeply. He could feel the vulnerable parts of himself emerging, those that yearned for validation and a sense of belonging beyond the heavy weight of tradition. "Let us sketch out some ideas," Claire encouraged, an inviting spark in her eyes. "I sense there's more value in your vision than you realize. Let's build a plan, and I promise to help you navigate the hurdles that will surely come our way." For the first time in years, Doug considered the potential of brainstorming without restraint. His mental canvas began to fill with vibrant colors and innovative concepts. He envisioned workshops where local artists could come together with farmers to explore their unique narratives, allowing art to flourish alongside agriculture. Not only would it shine a light on farm life, but it could foster an appreciation for the intertwining of nature and creativity. Doug's hands trembled slightly as he grabbed a notepad from the table, the pages still crisp, untouched by the burdens he had carried. "Let us focus on a plan," he said, the firmness in his voice surprising even him. "How about an exhibition where each artwork corresponds with a specific farming story? We could even invite the community to share their own experiences." Bob scoffed again, unable to hide his disdain. "Good luck getting anyone to actually care about that fluff. Real work happens on the ground." The barb struck, but Doug found his resolve hardening. The fire within him whipped up, fueled by Bob's doubt. He didn't need everyone to believe in him, he needed to believe in himself. Claire sensed the shift, and her excitement was palpable. "There are places we can reach out to: local galleries, community centers. We could showcase your sketches, but also plan live demonstrations. People love to see the process behind the art." Doug outlined his thoughts with fervor, and Claire's enthusiasm mirrored his own as they forged a partnership steeped in mutual respect and ambition. As they brainstormed, everything he had once feared seemed surmountable, merely stepping stones to greater achievement. But he couldn't shake the nagging thought of his father's potential disapproval. Suddenly, he looked up, meeting Claire's gaze. "What if my dad doesn't come around? What if this all falls flat?" "There's always a risk," she said, her voice steady. "But the bigger risk is not trying at all. You have a story that needs to be told, Doug. It's not just yours, it belongs to the land, the people, and the art that is waiting to be born from it." That sentiment struck deep, and in that moment, Doug felt renewed. He was ready not just to confront Bob and the cynics, but to engage with his own fears head-on. He would show his father that art and agriculture could coexist, perhaps even thrive together. As the conversation flowed and ideas solidified into a plan tangible enough to grasp, a question nagged in the back of his mind: would he have the courage to face his father and present this vision? He tossed the thought around, struggling against the undercurrents of fear that had long held him in check. The looming confrontation with Harold felt inevitable, as if the very spirit of the farm demanded a reckoning. With the weight of possibility bulging within him, Doug felt that he was on the brink of a transformative journey. A bated breath compelled him to map out the next steps, both the execution of his vision and the dialogue that awaited him with his father. Would he step forward into a future he envisioned or retreat into the familiar shadows of doubt? As he and Claire solidified their plans, he realized the moment of truth was drawing near, pulsing like the heartbeat of the barn itself. Would he choose to step into light, embracing conflict in pursuit of growth, or retreat into darkness, surrendering his dreams once again? The anticipation in Doug's heart swelled, a crescendo of fear and determination propelling him forward. That evening, after shaping his vision with Claire, he gathered the strength to confront his father. The barn echoed with echoes of his childhood, grounding him in the past while opening doors to a future he yearned to carve out. Tonight was the moment he would redefine boundaries between tradition and creativity. He approached Harold, who leaned against the old wooden beams, peering out at the now familiar landscape. "Dad, can we talk?" Doug's voice trembled with the weight of what he was about to propose. Harold turned, surprise flickering across his face. There was apprehension mingled with curiosity. "What is it, Doug? I know there's been a lot going on, but we need to focus on the work we do here." "I understand that," Doug began, the words spilling forth like a torrent he could no longer contain. "But I've been thinking about the future of this farm. What if we could blend our agricultural legacy with art to create something new? Something that brings the community here, helps them see the value in what we do while celebrating creativity." Harold's brow furrowed, the skepticism apparent. Doug could feel the tension seep through the air, the past clung stubbornly to their conversations like stubborn weeds. "Son, I get that you're passionate about this, but art?" Harold shook his head dismissively. "We don't have time for whims. This land feeds people." "Yes, it does, but what if it could also inspire them?" Doug pressed on, gathering the fragments of courage he had chased for too long. "Claire and I have been planning an exhibition that showcases the stories behind our farming, the artistry of what we do every day. We could show that cultivating the land is an art form in itself, one that deserves recognition." Harold's silence was thunderous, stirring an internal tempest in Doug. Would his father see the value in his vision, or would the pendulum of tradition weigh heavy enough to crush his dreams? Finally, Harold spoke, his voice a mixture of weariness and concern. "But Doug, what about the practicalities? We have bills to pay, families to feed. You remember your grandfather's stories. He had no time for frivolous ideas. But what if this isn't frivolous?" Doug felt an unexpected surge. "What if we could transform the way our community sees us? Instead of just a farming business, we could become a cultural hub, a place where agriculture and art coalesce. This could help our bottom line." The fire in Doug's words reverberated around them, igniting something within that had long been dormant. Yet doubt creased Harold's features. "And what if it doesn't work? What if you fail?" "Then I fail, but at least I tried," Doug said, the conviction bolstering his spirit. "But what if it does work? What if we attract new folks to our farm? What if families come for an experience that ties art to agriculture? We could cultivate a whole new understanding of what it means to live off the land." The floodgates had opened, and Doug unveiled a vision fueled not just by ambition but by his desire to honor their family's legacy while forging something entirely new. "You talk about tradition, but this farm grew from change, Dad," Doug continued, his voice steady now. "Every generation has adapted to survive. Can't we honor that and innovate?" The atmosphere pulsated between them, tradition clashing with aspiration, familial bonds tested by the allure of progress. After what felt like an eternity, Harold finally sighed, a brittle sound cascading into the silence. I worry. Then let us work on this together. You've taught me everything I know about farming, now let me share my vision with you. Would you come to the exhibition? Just to see what I'm trying to create?" The plea was simple, yet it held the weight of a shared future. To Doug's surprise, Harold regarded him with a hint of something resembling hope. "I don't know if I can wrap my mind around that, Doug. But if you really believe in it, maybe I could come. I'll give it a shot." Doug's heart swelled with an emotion he hadn't felt in years, pride, tinged with gratitude. He reached out to his father, a bridge forming in the quiet space between them. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered, his voice cracking like the wood he shaped with tender hands. "I promise I'll make you proud." The two stood in the barn, the legacy of work their ancestors had poured into the earth shimmering in a new light. Doug felt a solid assurance anchor him. He would pave a path not just for himself but for a future built on personal and shared recognition. Days passed, and the culmination of Doug's ambition transformed from a mere idea to tangible reality. With Claire by his side, they reached out to local artists and pulled the community into a collaborative effort, crafting an event that celebrated both the soil and the soul of their rural landscape. Finally, the day of the exhibition dawned, a clear blue sky presiding over a vibrant setting full of sculptures and canvases, stories woven through every display. The townsfolk gathered, eyes drawn to an array of vivid interpretations that depicted life on the farm from various artistic angles. Doug stood proud, a blend of excitement and anxiety swirling within him. Would the community embrace this vision, one that married tradition with artistry? Would his father find value in the story placed before them? Then he saw Harold arriving, alongside local figures who had once doubted him, stepping through the entrance with uncertainty swirling around him. "What do you think?" Doug asked, tension threaded in his voice. Harold's expression softened as he surveyed the vibrant display around him. "You did this?" "Yes." A smile cracked Harold's stoic demeanor, a moment that sent shockwaves through Doug's heart. Perhaps he underestimated the power of his father's approval, a testament to the power of vulnerability and belief. "Doug, this is incredible," Harold said, a note of fatherly pride creeping into his voice. "You blended two worlds so beautifully." As their eyes met, Doug felt an affirmation of self in that singular moment, a fleeting glimpse of the man he was becoming. The judgment they had faced dissolved in the embrace of a new narrative, one where art and agriculture intertwined, each strengthening the other. It wasn't merely about proving himself, it was the realization of potential, of forging connections and breaking away from the past to create something resplendent. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting rays over the barn, a symbol of possibilities yet to unfold. Doug stood strong, anchored by pride and recognition. He had not only shaped wood but had crafted his identity, emerging as an artist without forsaking the roots that grounded him. This was just the beginning. He was ready to conquer whatever came next. Now that you've witnessed Doug's journey of transformation and triumph, you need to subscribe now to the channel to ensure you don't miss out on more exclusive, emotional stories just like this one. Leave a like now. Your support coaches the algorithm, letting others discover this inspiring narrative. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your action could inspire another journey of fulfillment and growth. Comment below your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Your voice matters in shaping what comes next.